pause it.
So, like Marshall said, my name is Adrienne Andrews. I've worked for UNH since 2013. I moved up here from Arkansas, so if you hear that little lilt in my voice, that's where that's coming from. This has been a rough winter for us, especially because we're not used to all the snow, but we really enjoy it here. I've worked in IT for about 15 years. Most of that time has been as a system administrator, and I've generally worked in pretty small shops where I've had to do, everything from networking to server stuff to printers, all that fun stuff. So I usually joke with people and say if it plugged into a wall and it broke, it was my problem. So coming to UNH was an opportunity for me to focus on a product that I'm really passionate about, and that's SharePoint. So my role here at UNH is primarily being the SharePoint administrator. So I manage and maintain the servers that run SharePoint, and I also help anyone that's interested in starting a SharePoint site, talk through the different options, discuss, what might be best for them, and just generally be a shoulder to cry on when it comes to anything SharePoint related. So today, what we're going to go over is some pretty high-level topics. One thing that, if you haven't ever used SharePoint before, it's a little deceiving as to how big a product it is. It's really more of a platform than just one single individual item. So most people, whenever they think of SharePoint, they think of, it's a place to do websites. Well, today we're going to go over the 6 levels of SharePoint hell, I guess you could say. So there's basically 6 areas of SharePoint that we're going to talk about, and what those areas encompass, and try to help you wrap your brain around everything that SharePoint can do, and hopefully pique your imagination as to maybe ways that we can help you solve some business processes with this product. Another thing that I think we don't publish enough is the fact that SharePoint is free to any department on campus. It's free for faculty and staff, and that's huge. So a lot of times it gets forgotten if it's not being used. So I do encourage you to mention it to your friends, your colleagues, and just help remind people that this is a resource that's out there for them to use. So before this presentation, this is probably how you feel about SharePoint. So I have no idea what is going on at all with SharePoint. This is just crazy. It's just this weird product that people talk about, but I have no idea what it does. And hopefully after this presentation, this is how you're going to feel about SharePoint. So, one thing I'd like to point out and to keep in mind throughout this presentation is everything that I'm showing you today is done with SharePoint. I'm not using PowerPoint. I'm not using any other third-party product. This is entirely done on the SharePoint platform. This is our new 2013 interface. And I do encourage you, if you've worked with SharePoint in 2010 and you got a bad taste in your mouth, give it another chance, because they've made a lot of improvements in 2013 and it's much, much easier to use, and they've done a better job of not isolating their Mac users. So keep that in mind as we go along here. So, all right, we'll get started. So first of all, what is SharePoint? That's a really interesting question, and it seems like it should be really easy to explain, but it's not. If you try Googling what is SharePoint, you get some of the weirdest answers. So I went to Microsoft to kind of get an idea of how they describe SharePoint. And it says, organizations use SharePoint to create websites. You can use it as a secure place to store, organize, share, and access information from almost any device. All you need is a web browser such as Internet Explorer, Chrome, or Firefox. And then we go into some Microsoft jargon. So Microsoft jargon to me is just kind of made up ubiquitous terms that can mean a lot of different things. And they really love to name their products these words that don't really make a lot of sense. So you can read through here. It's basically, it's building websites, it's sharing documents. Okay, well, I kind of get that, but you know, to most people, this is kind of how it all sounds.
Automatically synchronizing cardinal grammeters. Such an instrument is the turboencabulator. Now, basically, the only new principle involved is that instead of power being generated by the relative motion of conductors and fluxes, it is produced by the modial interaction of magneto-reluctance and capacitive directance. The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a panometric fan. The latter consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes so fitted to the ambifation lunar wane shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented. The main winding was of the normal Lotus O delta type placed in panendermic semi-boloid slots of the stator, every 7th conductor being connected by a non-reversible Tremie pipe to the differential girdle spring on the up end of the Grammys. The turboencabulator has now reached a high level of development, and it's being successfully used in the operation of Novatrunnions. Moreover, whenever a fluorescent spore motion is required, it may also be employed in conjunction with a drawn reciprocation dingle arm to reduce sinusoidal repleneration. It's not cheap, but I'm sure the government will buy it.
Okay, so I don't know if that's how you're feeling, but whenever I first heard of SharePoint, that's exactly what I heard. So let's see if we can give them another chance to kind of make sense of all this. Okay, so in this diagram, they've kind of broken down the different areas of features and functionality of SharePoint. So we've got the sites subset, and that's basically, it says to deliver a single infrastructure to provide portal and collaboration capabilities across intranet, extranet, and internet sites. Communities, locate and interact with people through social networking. Content, manage content of all types. Search, find content including information in line of business data systems. Insights, create business intelligence by transforming raw data into actionable information. And composites, rapidly create business solutions. Great. I'm still confused. So basically, SharePoint is a set of building blocks, a set of features, all that do completely separate things, but you can take them as they are and build your own customized solution. So let's take a look at that SharePoint wheel again and think of it as building blocks. So here you see we've got the sites feature. So that's things like team sites, project sites, portals. We have a familiar ribbon user interface. So that's similar to the way Office provides you the options whenever you go in and edit a Word document. You've got all your controls up in a ribbon. So with SharePoint, they try to carry that ribbon feel across into SharePoint so that it makes it easy to develop these sites and web pages without having to know how to do HTML or CSS or learn a new product that you're unfamiliar with. It also includes mobile support, so you can access these portals and team sites on an iPad or on a touchscreen device. It's also very tightly integrated with Office. So for communities, we have hashtags and mentions, much like Twitter and Facebook and other social communities now are using. I can get activity feeds, so I can see what all is going on in a social context across multiple sites in different areas of SharePoint. I can follow content that's pertinent to what I want to do, so I can tag something to kind of get an idea of what's happening with these different sites or documents or whatever. I can also, with 2013, build community portals. So maybe I have a discussion group that crosses department borders or research institutions or what have you. I can organically have something grow from a community portal like that. I also have the ability to make blogs and wikis. And I can share information with teams and work with my community through things like shared calendars, tasks, and notebooks. So the content area, that's where I can manage the content and items that I have in SharePoint. So OneDrive for Business is a new brand of the MySite storage, or SkyDrive, I think is what it was called even before then. So I have an area where I can store my personal documents, but have them available in SharePoint as well. I can co-author documents in real time with other people in my team. I can set up versioning to be able to keep track of what changes have been made. I can also lock different content down to require approval before something is published or live. And again, I've got really tight Office integration. So I can upload and download and work with things directly from SharePoint into Office and make connections from Office into SharePoint. And then finally, we have web-based viewing and editing capabilities. So this other area here is search. So SharePoint comes built with a really powerful and robust search capability. You can search not only the names of documents that you have stored, but also the contents. So let's say you don't remember exactly what the title of that document was, but you do remember some of the words that were in those documents, or maybe you remember the author of the document, or when it was created, things like that. You can search through any site that you have access to and have all your results come up and be presented to you at one time. Business intelligence and insights. This is one that I think gets overlooked quite a bit, and we're hoping to really start helping people focus on this area in the upcoming with our most recent rollout. So business intelligence, that's things like dashboards, KPIs, interactive charts, things like that, so that you can actually report on the work and the data that you have. Excel services is built in to SharePoint now, so that's it's basically like the number crunching that Excel can do on your desktop, hosted inside a server platform that runs on and in conjunction with SQL Analytics. Visio services, so I can actually create and view diagrams and work with Visio documents right in the browser, and map out workflows, other technical documents, or even non-technical documents. You can do all kinds of things with Visio. And then Power Pivot and Power View, and those are of course Microsoft terms. I'm sure you can tell which ones Microsoft came up with, but we'll go into those a little bit more in detail and explain what those are as well. And then the last section here is called Composites. So Composites is basically you can take the platform and develop your own content. You can develop your own lists, databases, forms. You can connect to line of business systems. You can create external content types. So you can really take the features in the composites area to make SharePoint your own and work specifically for whatever your department is, or your group is, or your organization is, and that may that most likely will be different for every different group. So we'll go into each one of these in a little bit more detail. So we'll start with sites. So, and by the way, I'm actually featuring some artwork, some Lego artwork by a man who calls himself the Brick Artist. I would encourage you to go check out his website. He actually had a presentation, I think, of his artwork at Faneuil Hall earlier this year. So it's some pretty cool stuff. So team sites. If you've worked with SharePoint at all, you're probably very familiar with a team site, because that's probably what most people think of whenever they think of SharePoint. So they think of, oh, this is the place where my team goes and we dump our documents and we have a calendar, and we just have a little bit of content that we work with. So what's really cool about SharePoint is they provide you with a really nice set of templates to start your site. So generally the team site is the one that everyone starts with, because it's got all the pieces that most people will want. So to give you an example, if you haven't used it before, we'll go to a team site here. And this is a SharePoint 2013 team site, just fresh out of the box without any customization, and the things that comes with. So if you'll notice, I've got a little documents area, so I can upload documents maybe from my desktop or Windows Explorer. I can just drag and drop those into the window with the new version. I've also got a shared notebook. So this is a kind of a new feature with 2013. I can actually have a OneNote notebook specifically for whatever this team site is. And this allows people to collaborate inside one OneNote notebook all at the same time. So this is live and dynamically shared, so I can see if somebody else is working in this notebook with me as I'm editing things. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back into this too and just show you something really quickly. If you notice up here at the top, has anybody used Office 365 yet for anything? In passing? Okay, a little bit. If you notice, it's starting to look a lot like Office 365. It's kind of hard to tell the difference between 2013 and Office 365, and they're really bringing those that look and feel to the entire platform with Microsoft. So I've got this tab, this ribbon tab up here at the top, so it feels much like working in Office 365. I've got all these controls. I also get this option to open this in OneNote. So if I choose to open this in OneNote, it actually brings up my desktop application, but it's still saving everything in SharePoint as I'm working on it. So if I need those extra controls at the top instead of this lighter view, then I can go in with the desktop mode and it will still stay connected to SharePoint and keep that dynamic connection going. So that's pretty cool. So if I wanted to customize this site, I could actually go in and just add an app, is what they call it in SharePoint 2013. So let's say I wanted to create a calendar that I want to share with my team. I just click that button and I say, yeah, I want to add a calendar. I'm going to call that Team Calendar. Alright, so I'm going to add an appointment, and this is all in the web. Save that. Okay, great. So now I've got this team calendar that shows up over on the left. So as you can see, it just grows and changes with me. I don't have to know anything special. I can just get in there and start working. If I want to edit this page, Microsoft also makes it really easy to customize these sites, not only with what applications and content that you put in there, but also how the pages are displayed to your users. So if I want to edit this page, I can click on the Page tab, and again I get that ribbon feel. So I can just say edit this page, and let's say I want to add that calendar that I just created. So I'm going to go back up here into my ribbon and say Insert, the app.
Can I come with questions in between, or do you want us to wait until the end or something?
What we can do is after each section, so at the end of the sites section, we'll do questions about sites, and then so on for the others, if that works. So I'm going to just say add a team calendar, and there it is. So I'm going to save that, and now my team site is customized to where I can display everything right there in the browser. So it's really powerful. Now I'll show you another example of a template that you can start out with, and this is a project site. So let's say I'm working with a group of people just to get a project done, just like it sounds. This is a project site. It comes with a little bit different look to the home page. It's got some different items on it than the first one that we looked at. So I've actually got a timeline here that we start out with, and if you notice, I do still have my nice little Metro tiles here and the documents list. But I also have tasks and calendars already added to this site because it's assumed that I'm already going to be using this if I'm working on a project with somebody. So if I wanted to go in and edit a task or get started with a task, you'll notice I have this right in the browser. I can start adding an item right here. And I'm going to put my username in there, and it automatically assigns that. So now I'm going to say add this to my timeline. I probably need a due date. Let's say this is due by tomorrow. Really put the pressure on. Okay. So now if I go back home, stay on this page.
It might be bad if it's added.
Oh, yeah.
Inserted.
Sorry. Delete that. Okay. Now, Yes, leave the page. Okay. That's what I wanted to show you. I've got my timeline is starting to get populated. So the same thing with this project site. It's still just a template to get you started. So I can still go in here and start adding and changing the apps and things that are on my site. So we won't go through all these because there's tons and tons of different apps that are pre-built. But you can see there's a lot of different things that are pre-built that most people would want to use. So like contacts and discussions, shared links, things like that are pretty popular. So, and the last demo I'm going to show you here is an example of a portal site. So, whenever I think of a portal site, I think of an area where I'm going to have most people just reviewing the content there and not collaborating on that document. So I'm providing information for other people to consume, not necessarily contribute to. So a good example would be like a department homepage. So you can kind of direct people to where they might need to go to collaborate, but this is just kind of a landing area or an informational area to provide to your users. So you can see we've got our own custom links here to where we can point people to these other websites or whatever. We've got some RSS feeds to where we can kind of provide a dynamic view of different things that are going on across campus. A little Twitter widget we can insert there. So as you can see, there's not really anywhere in this page for people to input information, but it's a good place for them to start to kind of have you help direct them to where they need to go, or maybe provide them with the items that they might need to be able to do their job. Okay. So, Anna, did you have a question?
I did.
Okay.
So it's like a combination of a couple of questions. I don't know if everybody knows, but SharePoint is behind firewall, so we have to be VPN in from off campus. That's one, right? Correct?
Yes.
My second question would be, can you provide different permissions to different pages as you create them? Or is that, like you just created a calendar, can that be, a specific for A, B, and C person only as opposed to, C, D, and F? And then my third question, and to close it all together, what would make me decide between having a public folder calendar as opposed to a SharePoint calendar? One easily being manipulated by me, and other being manipulated by you guys. What would be in your point of view, what would help me make that decision? Which one do I go with?
Okay, those are fantastic questions. Thank you. So yes, as your first point, you do have to be either on campus or be logged into the VPN currently to view content that is in SharePoint. We are looking at some other options for the future, but we'll talk about that towards the end of the talk here. The second thing is setting up permissions. So yes, absolutely, you can set different permissions for the different content in SharePoint. So you can get as granular as setting permissions for individual items. So like, let's say you have a document library and you have a document that you only want certain people to see. You can set individual permissions on those documents. Generally, what I try to recommend to people is that gets really difficult to maintain. So what I usually recommend is if you have a group of users that have similar permissions, or that you want to have similar permissions, separate those out at higher levels. So like, for instance, an entire site to themselves. So I've got another example that I'll show you in a few minutes, but we have some departments that are spinning up some new sites, and so they'll have their top level site will be kind of a landing page and have more of kind of the portal feel and provide links and information about maybe their department. So other people that are not members of the department can come and hit their landing page, view the content that's there, and then underneath that page there will be a subsite for the actual department members to work and collaborate on documents that the visitors to the site don't even see. It's all provided in one area, but the permissions are managed in such a way that they're split up into these large subsections instead of trying to manage individual permissions. So let's open up this team site again, and I'll show you kind of the backstage view of this site. So the way that the permissions work, or the way that I generally recommend setting the permissions, is by creating groups, much like creating Active Directory groups, if any of you are familiar with that. Of course, SharePoint is a Microsoft product, so it's very tightly integrated with Active Directory, and it works much the same way. So I'm going to just go into the people and groups section here, and so you can see on the left actually have members. So the members group, they're people that can contribute to this site, so they have edit capabilities. They can't create apps, and they can't change the structure of the site necessarily, but they can work with documents, they can add items to lists and things like that. Owners of the site, however, can change the structure and the functionality of the site, and they can do most things to customize the site that they'd like. The visitors, however, just have read-only access, so they can read the information that's there, but they can't really interact or contribute to any of that information. I generally try to recommend that people just stay with these types of groups because most of the time it works great. There may be one-off cases where you would want to create a specific group with very specific custom permissions, or break the inheritance and have a special library or something of secure documents. There are times where you might want to do that, but I generally recommend that people come and talk to us first before they start getting into really customizing the permissions too much, because it can get difficult to maintain. The third question was about calendars and why you would want to use SharePoint over a public calendar or a public folder in Exchange. So, of course, it always depends on the business process that you're trying to solve and how most people and how the group interacts with this calendar. But I, of course, might be a little biased. I personally think that SharePoint calendars are better than public folders for many reasons. And I've got an Exchange admin sitting right here next to me going, yes.
I have Sarah in both sides, so I'm trying to just...
Yeah, and so old habits are hard to break. And public folders is one of those things that I think Microsoft introduced, and then they wanted to take it back and they couldn't. And they've been trying to take it back and trying to take it back and trying to take it back for a long time now. And so with every release of Exchange, it gets a little bit more difficult, and public folders are kind of hairy to deal with for many reasons. One is being that permissions are harder to manage. You can't set them up on your own. You usually have to call and have them set up. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can,
Yeah.
But Microsoft clearly has made its interest in phasing out public folders pretty apparent.
And I think that's why my question popped, because I know you guys are trying to migrate away from it, so, it'd be a good opportunity for all the IT folks to
Yeah, and
absorb
every new
that.
release, it's something like, well, we're going to get rid of public folders, and everyone says, no, we're using them. And they say, okay, we'll support the next time. We'll get rid of them. And then that time comes, and everyone says, we're using them. And they say, okay, well, next time we'll get rid of them. And I think eventually they're just going to get rid of them.
Yeah.
So will you be able to migrate what's there to share?
Yep.
If you were to say, okay.
I think so, yeah.
Yes, we actually do have a utility that we can use to help you move and migrate your public folder content into SharePoint. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, that is something that I would love to talk to you about and see what kind of options that we can come up with. And yes, I've got a whole group of guys around me that are very interested in having this taken care of. So. And so functionality-wise, I think even SharePoint calendars are better. And the reason that I say that is I can actually connect my SharePoint calendars to Outlook and use them as overlays just like I can with a public folder. And they're generally easier to find because they're going to be on the sites that I'm hopefully working on. So let's go into the calendar here, and just to give you an idea, so this is my personal calendar. Now, our team has a SharePoint calendar where we record our who's going to be out of the office and different things like that. So I'm going to use that and put that on as an overlay. We also have the IT change calendar, which is a SharePoint calendar. So I'm going to throw that on there too, so that I can see whenever I get ready to start scheduling meetings or scheduling upgrades or scheduling maintenance, things like that, I can look very quickly and say, oh yeah, this weekend would not be a good weekend to make that big change because these people are out and there's this other upgrade that's going on, and so I can work with it right here in Outlook. And I can do more than just make the calendar overlay and view them all at the same time. I can actually make appointments. I have all the features and functionality of Outlook with that SharePoint calendar, even though the actual events are stored in SharePoint in a SharePoint calendar. Here's the only caveat, really, with using SharePoint for your calendars. This cool connection that I've got in Outlook only works if you're on a PC. So
I assume that's changing with the next release of Outlook.
I
for
hope.
The Mac.
But
that's
I have the preview loaded up on this, and I'm looking at the IT change calendar right now, and that connect to Outlook button is still grayed out.
yeah, that's
So you can read it, but you can't make any changes.
well, you can't connect it to Outlook for Mac.
I can still view it on the Mac.
Yeah, you can still, and that's the thing is, you still have all the same features and functionalities. You can view it in the web. You can work with it in SharePoint.
But that's still a beta. That's not the
Yeah.
full
Sure,
release.
yes, that's right.
It is, but this has been a source of contention for years and years.
Since Outlook 2011 came out, the
Yeah.
calls have been for the next version.
Yeah. So if you have if the majority of your user base is using Outlook for Mac and they absolutely have to use Outlook to be able to work with their calendars, you might not have much of a choice.
But they can also just go in a browser and it actually works on a Mac now.
Yes.
SharePoint 2013.
Yes, SharePoint 2013 works really well. So, for instance, Matt Connors, who is in our group, he's the box admin. He's been going around and doing these box demos, and this is something I'll show you here in a bit. But you can actually interface and tie Box and SharePoint together and provide a nice user experience between the two. Well, he uses a Mac. and he was using Chrome to do these demos. So he was logging into SharePoint and doing all this stuff, and people kept saying, "Wait a minute, you're on a Mac and you're doing that. You're able to do that in SharePoint. What the heck is going on here?" So it works really well. It's so much cooler. Yes, it really is. It's like a completely different product.
I have a question about team sites.
Sure.
Pre-existing team sites, what's the migration path like that forward?
That is
2010 sites?
2010 sites. So the new version of 2013, Microsoft is finally getting a little smarter about how they do these migrations. So what we can do is actually spin up an evaluation copy of your site in 2013 mode without changing anything in your production site, so that you can go through and verify all the features and functionality, make sure that everything works correctly. So if you have anything that you've custom built or designed, you can check that out and see what it's actually going to look like. We can give you as much time as you need to work in that evaluation copy of your site, and then whenever you're ready, we just basically flip the switch. We've upgraded several sites already. I know at least 10 off the top of my head, and we've created several more evaluation sites, and I haven't heard a negative response yet to the upgrade process. So it's been incredibly smooth so far, and I'm knock on wood somewhere. If you're interested in upgrading, I will show you at the end where you can go to get on that list if you want to have a new site created, or even just kind of talk about what the different options are. I'll provide some links to that kind of stuff as well. Okay, we're going to move on to the second subject here, or area, and that's communities. So this has been a big push with Microsoft here lately, is getting more into like the other cool kids are, tagging and mentioning people. And part of the reason that I think that they're doing this is because they do actually see some value in having these organic conversations and different ways to share information outside of what your typical structure might be. So I'm going to actually open up my site, which is now in SharePoint 2013 mode. And this is, everyone has been upgraded to 2013 mode. So if you haven't been in there recently, I do encourage you to go in and check it out. It's way cooler. So going to my site here, you can see all the different information about me. So you can get my contact information over here on the right. You can see what all I've been doing lately in SharePoint. So you can see I've followed some different sites. I've been able to follow people, which is creepy. And it is so creepy that whenever I follow people, I get, "What is this? Why are you following me?" So you can see I've got a whole conversation going. Yeah. So yeah, we can post images. We can mention each other. We can create our own tags and things like that. So it's kind of fun, but it also can be very valuable. And I'll show you how it's going to be valuable here in a minute. That doesn't look all that valuable right now, but work discussions actually could be. So what we're going to do now is we'll go into the Sites tab. So to get to the Sites tab, you actually click up here in this ribbon. To get to your My Site, it's just like in 2010. You click on your name and go into the About Me section, that'll take you into your My Site. So in the Sites tab, this actually shows me all the sites that I'm following. Now, if I decide that I want to follow a site or a list or anything like that, if you notice, there's this little follow button that's right up here in the top corner. If I click that, it's going to add the site to my followed sites list. I'm like, oh, hey dummy, you're already following this. Like, okay. So this is handy because I can kind of create my own list of sites that I frequent. So rather than having to have a shortcut or a favorite to every site that I go, and maybe I change computers, I can just log into my site, and I've actually got all my SharePoint sites right there so that I can, keep up with all those. It also is kind of smart enough to see, well, you go in and you're a contributor on these other sites, or you frequent these other sites, so you might want to follow these as well. So if I decide I want to do that, then I can just click follow. It's like, okay, there you go, that's it. So so that's content following. Now let's go into, actually I'm going to go back into my site and show you how to follow people. So I just clicked on my news feed over on the left, and I'm going to scroll down here and see all the people that I'm following. So you can see I've got quite the list of people that I try to bug. So whenever I follow somebody, so I'm going to follow you since you ask questions. Yeah. So what happens now is Anna's actually going to get an email to let her know that, hey, you've got a creepy person that's following you on SharePoint. And so in following somebody, they will show up in my news feed. So if they start following a site, or they start posting things to this news feed, I'll actually see that activity. So if I've got a team of people that I'm working with, and I don't need to go in and ask them, hey, did you update such and such, or oh, I saw that you're following that site. Okay, yeah, I should probably follow that too. You can kind of share information organically and socially like that. Okay. Now the third piece of this is communities, and this is something that is new with SharePoint 2013. So what we're looking at here is actually a portal that goes out across our entire SharePoint farm, and it looks for any community site, and it will display all the community sites that are available to me that I might be able to join. So a community site, let me just go in to the SharePoint community I created. It's like a news group, discussion board. You can make it like an FAQ, give people an area to ask questions, or just post their thoughts, and keep other people updated. So because I'm the owner of this site, I actually get these tools over here on the right so that I can go in and moderate discussions. So if somebody posts something offensive, I could go in there and delete it if I needed to. Hopefully everybody's professional enough not to have to do that. But another thing that I think is kind of cool is I can actually create badges. So one thing that experts talk about is gamification and making things fun for users, or making things kind of competitive. You can actually gamify your own discussion board. So if you have someone that asks a question, and then someone else comes in and answers that question, you can actually either manually assign them a badge, or you can set up these what they call reputation settings to automatically assign badges to people. or award them for participating in these discussions and sharing information. So it's a pretty powerful feature as well. So just to kind of show you what this is like for the end user, I can actually say I'm going to be asking a question. So someone could actually come in here and now add a reply. They could answer this question, or they could elaborate some more and say, yeah, me too, I don't get it either, or so it's very much like any news group you might add or work with on the internet in other locations. So that's a feature that I'm hoping we can kind of start leveraging a little bit to share some information. The same thing with blogs. This is something else that we don't do a lot of, but this is a blog that I created in my site. It's got some of the pieces of the discussion board, so people can reply to posts and collaborate with you and things like that. You can even, if you're really popular, people can subscribe to your posts, find out when you've posted a new thing, with just a click of a button. So that's pretty cool. And of course, calendars, I think we've already kind of talked about. But this is another way to really work with the community and share information together. So the same thing goes for tasks, and this is something that gets forgotten a lot of times. Is you've got tasks or flagged items in Outlook. You might have tasks in a SharePoint site. You might have tasks in a project site or whatever. 2013, and once we get you migrated to Exchange 2013, so this is kind of a preview of what's coming down the pike for you. But your tasks in SharePoint, you can actually roll everything all up together in one area. So if you've got multiple SharePoint sites that you work on, and you may have tasks across different SharePoint sites, you might have different project sites, and then your own personal tasks that you add to this, you can see everything all at the same time, so you don't have to go hunt for where that task is. And just like the calendars, you can connect this to Outlook. So I'm actually going to go. Yes, any of the connect to Outlook stuff is PC only, unfortunately. But you can see that is definitely an option. So my flagged email items, this is everything all rolled up into one view here. So I can filter that down to a particular SharePoint site if I want to. Or a particular project that I'm working on, or I can see everything all at one time. So very, very, very powerful. So I am going to show a very quick video. Really, it's pretty short. I think it's only like 2 minutes of some of these community features in action.
Organizations have so much tacit knowledge, but much of it gets lost because it was either too hard to find or no one shared it in the first place. SharePoint 2013 makes sharing information and knowledge management easier than ever. A great example of this is the new Communities feature. Communities help to facilitate discussion and capture frequently asked questions. Users can post questions and replies, and moderators can quickly identify a best reply. Top contributors are called out at the right of the page. Looking at a discussion I started about the XT2000 ad campaign, I can see that a few users have already responded. Janet's post is my favorite, so I mark that as a best reply, which then features that response at the top of the discussion. With SharePoint's connected platform, all of this content is fully searchable, making the information inside the community live on past the active conversation.
So, pretty cool. Are there any questions about that before we move on to the next piece? Nope?
One thing I find, and it seems to be harkening down the hallways here with 2013, we've got that 6-piece wheel, but it's like Microsoft likes to repeat feature lists in different components, even though they're not really all that different. Like we go from sites and calendars to communities and calendars. And sometimes I wonder if they really are trying to differentiate things, or if they're just trying to get more mileage out of a feature by listing it multiple times.
Well, that is a good point. And Microsoft is really good at giving you many ways to do certain things, and a lot of times there's overlap. So the way that I look at it is, so if you've got the Office line of products, so you've got Word and Excel and Access and all those different features and or products. Now each of those have features that overlap with things that you can do maybe in another product. For instance, in Word, you can create a table, but it might not work to do certain things. It might be better to make that table in Excel. And SharePoint is very much the same way. There are 100 different ways to do things in SharePoint, and sometimes it takes a while to really think through what you're trying to accomplish to figure out the best way to do that. And I think part of the reason that Microsoft is this way is because they're so huge, and they have teams that wouldn't it be a great idea if we made it do this? And another team is saying, oh, you know what? It'd be a really great idea if we could do this. And so they're working on solving the same thing in two very different ways. And so I think that leads to a lot of this bleed and overlap. And so yes, that is very much.
I think from an implementer's point of view, then it becomes, if I make a calendar using sites, do I have to make it again in communities, or can I just push it over?
Well, that is a good question. So a calendar in SharePoint is a calendar in SharePoint. The biggest problem that you run into is where you put that calendar and how accessible is it, and who's going to end up needing it in the future. Because with SharePoint being as open and dynamic as it is, creep is a big problem. So project creep. So you may start a site out with a particular set of ideas in mind, and then it grows and becomes this unwieldy, crazy monster of a site that is no longer working for what you need it to work as. So if you do find that you are in that position, and it happens probably to everybody at some point or another, I would encourage you to reach out to us. because we do have some utilities to where we can help you restructure, we can help you redesign, and kind of get things flowing again as things just kind of naturally grow over time, and we can help you redefine maybe where the future lies and things like that. So, okay, so content. This is probably one of the other thing. So besides sites, content is probably the other area that most people think of whenever they think of SharePoint. So I know a question that we got a lot whenever we started rolling out Box was, well, when do I use Box and when do I use SharePoint? There's not really a good answer for us to be able to tell you, because it depends on what you're trying to accomplish and what your business goals are, who your audience is, and things like that. So SharePoint has a very robust document management type system. So there are a lot of features like the co-authoring and versioning, approval workflows, things like that. So you can set up automation, you can lock things down, and then you can also apply metadata and tags, and you can make rules, and there's a myriad of things that we could probably spend a whole day talking about all the different things you can do with SharePoint content. So again, it really depends on what your particular business process is. As Anna pointed out earlier, you do at this point have to have VPN access in order to access SharePoint. So if your user base is distributed and you need to share documents with people outside the university, then SharePoint's probably not the right place to be storing that content. However, SharePoint does provide you with the tools to be able to surface that content in SharePoint. And what I mean by surface is basically we can give you a page, a site, a location to point people to show them everything they need to be able to do their job. So no matter where that content lives, you can provide one place for them to be able to access it. So for instance, I'm going to go into our demo page here for Box. So let's say I have a team site that's got all my calendars, it's got all my tasks, it's got all these other applications and lists that I've built, but some of this content needs to be stored in Box because of a reason like sharing it with external collaborators. Well, I don't want to have people remember to go, oh, I need to go here for this and I need to go here for this. So SharePoint and Box work really well together to be able to provide you a window into your content in Box. And so this is an example of a Box widget that I can surface or present to a user right from a SharePoint page. So, and this little cloud is just basically telling Box that yes, I'm a human. So as you can see, I can work with this content just like I would be working in Box in the web. I've got all the tools that I normally would want to use, and it takes me directly into whatever folder I tell this widget to start at. I can even drag files directly into this little widget from my desktop if I needed to. All kinds of fun stuff here.
What's the storage capacity on SharePoint for documents?
So generally generally what I recommend is, so SharePoint storage is more expensive for us as an organization. because of the way that the information is stored. That said, there's not a hard limit that we give to people for how much SharePoint content they can have. It really just depends on the technical aspect. So some things that don't work that well in SharePoint are really large files or executables. I would generally say if it's pictures or video files, those large items, it's probably better to store those in Box and then make a widget to be able to play your video in SharePoint. So Box can act as like kind of a back-end system, but it still feels to the user like you're in one location. So that's another one of those conversations where, if you run across somebody that's having trouble deciding what to do, then we'd be happy to talk to them and talk through the different pros and cons and help them make some of those decisions. So another link that you will see up here is this OneDrive. OneDrive for Business is basically Microsoft rebranded the MySite content. So in 2010 you had folders that you could store your own personal content and have your own kind of personal site to be able to work with documents on your own, and it wasn't by default shared with everyone in the world. Well, now they're calling that OneDrive for Business. It's still available. This is one of those areas where we probably will point people more towards Box and not encourage them to use the OneDrive for Business, but I do think it is important to know that it's there and that it should not be confused with the personal version of OneDrive. So anybody in the world can go and get a OneDrive account right now and sign up for free with whatever account they want to use. Yes?
Is it HIPAA aligned?
No, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Especially if it comes to storing any work-related items or UNH items, we're going to be encouraging people to either store it in Box or work with if it's, let's see.
Is Box HIPAA aligned yet? Has it been approved by?
Not by policy. So the official policy is to work with ISS.
Yeah. If there's ever.
He has a Van Dyke server, I think it's called. It's some kind of encrypted, I think it's from Symantec, that he's either stood up or is about to for HIPAA stuff.
We're waiting.
Yeah.
The other thing is that this storage is all here, and it's unencrypted, right? It's like in a SQL file or something,
Yeah.
a SQL database.
Yeah.
So it's weird.
Yeah.
The Box stuff is off-premise, encrypted in transit, and it rests on their servers. So
Yeah. So everybody has this OneDrive, and if you notice, it says OneDrive for Business. Now, I do actually have OneDrive Personal that I've had for years and years and years, and I do have both synced to my computer, so you can kind of see the difference. So there's OneDrive. This is Personal OneDrive, and OneDrive University of New Hampshire. So you can see it would be really super easy for somebody to accidentally store something in the wrong place, which is another reason that we're not really going to be pushing the OneDrive thing. So on to the next topic real quick. And I realize we're running short on time, so I'm going to kind of run through this really quick. So one thing I do want to show you is the library backstage view. So I keep using these words like libraries and lists, and one way that I like to explain this to people is a library is a place in SharePoint where you can store objects. So things like documents are objects, pictures are objects, any kind of file is an object, and that would go in a library. Lists are basically like a glorified Excel spreadsheet. So a list stores individual pieces of data, much like a spreadsheet would. So you have the different rows and columns to contain different types of information. So this is the backstage view of a library where I have documents. So here is where I could set the versioning settings. So maybe I want to require people to check documents out before they can edit it. Maybe I want to make sure that versioning is turned on in case Susie goes in and makes a change and totally messes up the document and I need to restore it back to the last version. This backstage view is where I would be able to do all of that. And there's a lot of stuff that I can do to customize each library to be a very unique experience for whatever need I might have. Another thing to point out is lists and libraries are email capable. So we have some people already using this. Actually, we can actually assign an email address to a library to where you can automatically be sending or using it as a repository for different things. So I know one thing that public folders can do is, we have email-enabled public folders. We do have ways to accomplish the same types of things in SharePoint, so that is another thing to keep in mind. There are also some other things that we're going to be rolling out here soon called site mailboxes, to where it really will work and feel a lot more like these shared mailboxes in Exchange. So lots of things to consider with that as well. Okay, we're gonna quickly move on to search here. So one thing that I think gets forgotten about a lot is the search capabilities in SharePoint. So I'm going to open up our Search Center and I'm just going to put this in. So whenever I type in my last name, I'm brought to this search page to where I can hover over these items and actually get a preview of the site. I could actually get, I could narrow this down to show me just the people that match this criteria, or I could even pull up the conversations that we've been looking at with the communities feature. So I can just hover over these items and get a preview of what's going on. I could even follow this conversation right from the search page without having to do anything. And if you look over here on the left, I can actually filter those results even further. So let's say I was looking for, oh gosh, a PowerPoint. So let's say, and the author was me. I can actually pull this up and just look at the preview right here. If I want to send this to somebody right from the search page, I can do that, and just automatically creates the email. So it's a super, wow, that's loud. Super powerful feature that that I think we don't leverage nearly enough. I can also set up search preferences. So if I have a search, for instance, that I happen to be running pretty frequently, I can actually set that up to get email alerts. So if there's a new item that comes up in those search results, I can get notified. So if people are posting stuff that they're not supposed to, or whatever, and I want to be notified anytime somebody puts in something like this, then it'll automatically send me an email. Another thing to point out about the search feature is the search feature goes and searches everything across the entire SharePoint farm. That can sound really scary, but something that's important to point out is that the search feature does something called security trimming, and so it's only going to show you the results that you are authorized to view. So you don't have to worry about if you put something out there that the entire world is not supposed to see or the entire organization is supposed to see. If they don't have permission to view that in SharePoint, they're not going to be able to see that in the search results. Okay, very quickly, moving along, and this is the insights feature or area is something that we could probably spend weeks on. So I'm just going to show you some very quick examples. But first I'm going to show you this video just to kind of give you an idea, and it's a short one.
One of the new features in Microsoft's self-service BI platform is PowerView in Excel and SharePoint. PowerView enables users to visually explore data, create interactive dashboards, and easily present and share reports, all within the familiarity of Excel and SharePoint. Users can quickly explore their data by selecting the touch-friendly charts and filters. All of the charts are automatically associated with each other, so they offer a connected view of your data. The map chart is specially powered by Bing Maps and resolves the geographic coordinates using location names in the dataset. Users can even drill down to different levels in the map to get a more detailed view. These new capabilities further empower self-service BI to serve as a platform for sharing insights and team collaboration. SharePoint's social features can be used in combination to offer a dynamic and collaborative decision-making platform. Visio Services is another feature of SharePoint that enable browser-based collaboration. Users can view diagrams online without needing Visio on their machines. They can monitor and discuss information through visual dashboards and commenting features, enabling greater communication and better decisions.
She says it way faster than I could get it out, so I think it's still valuable. So here's just a quick example with some test data of a dashboard that we've worked out. You can see as I hover over that, I can actually see what the numbers are, what the percentage points are. I can click on that and filter it even more. I can filter this or reset the filters. Do select all. So really, really cool. And this is right in the dialog box. So it doesn't matter what operating system I'm on or what browser I'm on. Everything is just right here in the web. So really powerful. An example of Visio services. So all these different features and functionalities can be tied to Office products. So and vice versa. So all these products can also tie to SharePoint information. So you can tie these items to different lists and any other data sets that you might have in SharePoint. So one example is this is a Visio diagram of our farm. Just to give you an idea, these servers here, I can actually, this is all tied to a list that I have in SharePoint. So I have one location where I can go and update. If I change something about this server, I go and update the information in the list, and it changes every diagram that I have, every document that I have that's tied to this list. So it can really improve the workflow and the amount of time and the efficiency of updating these types of things. So I can even link to a particular Word document that's just right here in the browser, and super easy to access, very easy to edit and change and keep dynamic. Let's see. We'll go through composites just really quickly. So composites is basically development without being a developer. I am not a programmer, I don't code, and I don't intend to. So SharePoint provides me with a lot of tools to where I can build my own application without having to do any of that code. So, for instance, custom forms is a big problem that a lot of people have. So this is right in a dialog box. This is all tied to a custom list that I've built. So I can have people come in and actually fill out this form, make their selections. I can require certain fields if I'd like, and still have all the explanations as to what they're doing, and give them instructions right here, and be able to automate. So once people have submitted this form, I can set up an entire process that if they selected this option, then make this happen, or assign a task to this person. There's a huge gamut of things that I can do to customize this experience and tie all these other pieces together in an even more dynamic way. So let's see. To give you an idea of what the back end of this looks like, this is a custom list that I've built. So I've actually gone in and designed each of these columns in this list and to be different types of information, and then can apply different filters. I can link these columns to other lists and really come up with a really rich interface and a really powerful data tool. Okay, so very quickly, most of the time what people do is they build sites. They build team sites or project sites, and they use the Office integration piece the most. As far as content goes, the co-authoring and versioning are things that people particularly like. And then shared calendars, which can be either communities or sites, however you want to look at it. Those are the things that most people do. So we've got several different sites that unfortunately I've talked too much, so I'm not going to be able to go into. But I'll just pick this first one. So this is an example of a site where the top level is just providing information to whoever might want to get more information about this team. And then as I go down further into this site, I have a working group area. So I've got the documents and the notebooks and things like that. So unless you have permission to get here, you don't even see this particular area. But if you notice, these are all links to external systems. So it's providing one single area for people to land on, to be able to take them to wherever they need to go throughout the day. So, and I'm actually going to show Kirk's just really quickly, because it's pretty cool. So he's built this page as like an instructional information portal for people who use ConfigMan. So it's laid out differently than the one that we looked at just before, but this is what works best for this particular audience. And so it gives you some additional features and examples here. And you can see that there are YouTube videos embedded. There are Office documents that are embedded. And it's all right here in the browser. So I don't have to leave where I'm at. I can just be presented with all this information. So what's next for SharePoint? Very quickly, this is the same wheel that we had before. They're just, of course, calling it different names like they like to do. So we've got Office 365, we've got Yammer, we've got the OneDrive for Business in the cloud. Oslo, I haven't even fooled with that, I don't know. We've got Power BI, which is in the cloud, and then SharePoint apps. So there will be certain features of these items that we may start rolling in the future as things become more cloud-based, but of course that's going to depend a lot on discussions that we have with IT leadership and security team, things like that. So long story short, keep your ear to the ground. There's probably going to be more things coming down the road. So and then finally, how do you get started? I'm sorry, I had to put my son in here because he is so proud of his creation, and I hope that at some point you can get to a point where you are very proud of whatever your SharePoint creation is. And just some tips, because SharePoint is huge, don't get caught up on the particulars. First, focus on what you're trying to do, and if you ever have a question, I can help you talk through the different options and the different ways you can accomplish something. And if you spend the time to actually build a site, it can be really frustrating if it doesn't get used. So, just some tips. Habits are hard to break. Make sure your content is actually fresh and relevant and usable to your end users. And pull them in by, don't email that document around. Send them a link to the document, or, actually have the discussion happen in SharePoint, or, give them a reason to have to go there to get the information. Don't spoon feed it to them. And then keep it simple. So it doesn't have to be ultra complex. Sometimes the basics just work the best. And if you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I am going to take us to our SharePoint 2013 training site, and the best way to get to this is actually from the homepage. So if you go to the SharePoint homepage, there's a link right here to SharePoint 2013. I mean, look at the difference here. It's like night and day. So with our training site, you can just very quickly, send us an email. You can see what's going on, what are the other groups that are upgrading. You can submit a request for a new site right here, or just get on our list to be upgraded. If you want to even just talk about it, I would recommend just going ahead and just signing up. And if you are a real nerd and really want to get in and do a lot of research, I would encourage people to go check out Safari Books Online, which is available through the library here at UNH. And then last but not least, our training videos. You can actually look and get information about how to use all the 2013 products, and we're adding additional videos and products to this all the time. So we've got Box, we've got ConfigMan, Windows 8, Unified Messaging, all kinds of different instructional videos. These are all under 5-minute videos, and they're all very specific to tell you how to do something in whatever the product is. So you don't have to go search on the internet or YouTube for how do you do such and such. I would encourage you to check this site out, and if you have users that are having trouble, point them here, because they'll be able to find just about anything they'll need for SharePoint 2013 and most of our other Microsoft products right here. And if you want to learn how to make the Box widgets, you can actually do that right here too. So this answers a lot of questions about how to do things with Box and SharePoint. So that's it. Thank you all so very much for coming. It's a great turnout. I want to thank Marshall and Holly. We couldn't have done it without you, and I really appreciate you letting us have this forum to kind of talk about our different ideas and things, and help everybody out. So thank you.
Thank you.